They say family curses are just stories whispered to frighten children. But the Hollis family proves otherwise. Every child in their bloodline vanished before their 10th birthday. Everyone except one survivor. This is no legend, no campfire tale. This really happened, and what follows is the evidence left behind. The Hollis house did not look haunted. In photographs, it appears like any other suburban home. 2 stories of cream siding, a swing on the porch, and flower boxes under the windows. Yet those who lived nearby still recall something unnerving. They would walk their dogs past it at night and quicken their pace without knowing why. It wasn't the house. It was the silence around it, like the place was waiting for something. Interview neighbor Patricia Lee. 2008, a family in the suburbs, Peter and Ann Hollis, moved in during 1989 with their 4 children. Daniel, age 8, twins Lily and Rose, 5, and the youngest Michael, 2. To outsiders, the Hollises seemed normal. Peter worked at an auto shop. Ann volunteered at the elementary school. Neighbors saw balloons on birthdays, store-bought cakes, lawn sprinklers in the summer. But in every surviving photograph, investigators later noticed the same details. Children's eyes never looked at the camera. They were always turned slightly aside, as if focused on something no one else could see. School records note something strange as early as 1990. Daniel, the eldest, drew the same picture over and over in class, a stick figure with no face, standing in a doorway. When his teacher asked who it was, Daniel whispered, "He comes for us at night." The drawings were dismissed as imagination. But over the years, the same phrase resurfaced with his sisters. By 1994, the house itself seemed restless. Electricity bills showed multiple calls to repairmen. The Hollises reported flickering lights even when the grid was stable. A repairman later testified that when he checked the wiring, all the light bulbs on the second floor had blown simultaneously, something he claimed he'd never seen before. Inside the house, Ann complained to her sister on the phone about toys being moved, blocks stacked in perfect towers in the middle of the kitchen floor, shoes placed heel to toe in a line that led to the basement door. Ann tried to laugh it off, but her sister recalled the way her voice trembled. On October 12, 1994, one of the twins, Rose, told her kindergarten teacher something that would only make sense years later. "The man in the wall says we can't turn 10. The teacher wrote it down as a strange remark, but thought little of it. The following week, things escalated. On October 19th, Peter came home late. The front door was wide open, though Ann swore she had locked it. Inside, he found his children huddled on the couch, crying. Nothing was stolen. But when Peter checked upstairs, he noticed wet handprints smeared across the hallway wall. Small hands. The prints led to the attic pull-down ladder. He climbed up bat in hand, but the attic was empty. Only dust and insulation. Yet he swore he heard someone breathing up there. Steady and slow, in the dark. On October 24th, Lily vanished. Ann tucked both twins into bed at 9:01 p.m. When she returned at 11:01, Lily's bed was empty. The sheets were cold, as if she had been gone for hours. Rose was still asleep. Police dogs found no scent trail. Windows were locked. No one had seen or heard anything. The local news ran the headline, Girl 5 vanishes without a trace. Neighbors joined the search. Flashlights bobbing through fields and storm drains. Nothing. In the footage from that night, Ann clutches Rose and Michael on the porch. Peter stares at the camera, blank, his eyes wide as if he's listening to something just out of earshot. After Lily's disappearance, Rose refused to enter her bedroom. She would only sleep in the living room, clutching a blanket to her chest. She told her mother he took her. He said she had to go because she was too close. Ann tried to ask what she meant, but Rose shut down and began crying. Peter stopped sleeping. He nailed shut the upstairs windows and kept a bat by the couch. Ann later confided to police that her husband had started waking in the night, standing at the top of the stairs, staring into the dark hallway for hours at a time. Halloween, 1994, October 31, was the night everything changed. The Hollis house was the only dark one on the street. Neighbors remember every curtain closed, no porch light, no decorations. Inside, the family barricaded themselves in the living room. Every lamp they owned glowed. At exactly 11:59 p.m., the lights flickered. Ann remembered clutching Michael as Rose screamed. The electricity was cut out. Witnesses on the street later testified that they heard screams coming from the house. though the official police report never confirmed it. When officers arrived minutes later, Anne was on the lawn, sobbing and clutching Michael. Peter stood in the doorway, silent, holding the bat. His hands were shaking. Rose was gone. No forced entry. No footprints. No broken locks. The remaining child, Michael, was interviewed the next morning. Though only 2 years old, he was able to answer one question. "Where did your sister go?" An officer asked gently. Michael whispered, "She went where Daniel went." "I told her not to follow him." The officer froze. Daniel, the eldest son, had vanished in 1991, 3 years earlier. His case had been quietly ruled a runaway, though his body was never found. Now 3 children are gone. And the last one, Michael, was next. When Lily and Rose vanished in October 1994, the Hollis case became a local obsession. Newspapers ran headlines for weeks, neighbors whispered behind closed doors, and reporters camped outside the family's home. But as weeks turned into months, something far stranger began to emerge, a pattern. It wasn't an isolated case. You could map it. Every Hollis child in the family tree, gone before age 10. Always unexplained, always without a trace. The police couldn't see it, but the family knew. They'd known for generations. Interview with Dr. Margaret Keene, folklorist, 2011, November 3, 1994. Detective Alan Cross was assigned to the Hollis file. In later interviews, he admitted the case disturbed him more than any other in his 28-year career. You expect evidence. Fibers, prints, a broken lock, something. But there was nothing. Just silence. I felt like the house itself was laughing at us. Case notes show the police brought in child protection services. Michael, the last child, was briefly placed in foster care for safety. Within 2 days, however, Anne demanded him back, insisting, "He's safer with me." Whatever this is, it's ours to face. The court allowed it, against the recommendation of social workers. By early 1995, Michael began showing unusual habits. He would wake at 3:17 a.m. every night, walk into the hallway, and stand facing the attic ladder until Anne carried him back to bed. Anne wrote in her diary, later recovered by investigators. March 11, 1995. He laughs when the lights flicker. I asked why, he said, "Because he's coming down." April 1995. Toys stacked again. This time in Michael's room. Perfect tower, 7 blocks high. Michael says he didn't do it. Neighbors claimed they often heard music boxes playing from the house in the middle of the night. The Hollises owned no music boxes. Detective Cross began researching the family history. He uncovered something chilling. Peter's younger brother vanished in 1972, age 9. Anne's cousin disappeared in 1968, also age 9. Tracing further back, Cross found at least 6 more unexplained child vanishings in the Hollis line. Spanning to the early 1900s, Cross told reporters off-record, "You don't believe in curses until you see one on paper." July 14, 1995, a heat wave scorched the suburbs. Power outages were common. That night, the Hollis house went dark again. Anne reported hearing movement above the ceiling. Convinced a person was hiding in the attic, she called Cross directly. Officers arrived and pulled down the attic ladder. Inside, they found something disturbing. Dozens of small handprints pressed into the insulation, circling the beams. Too many to belong to one child. Cross described the site as, like children had been crawling through the ceiling for years. Samples were taken. No fingerprints, no DNA. Neighbors began reporting odd incidents. Paperboy claimed he saw a child's face watching him from an upstairs window, 3 months after both. Twins had already vanished. A mother on the street reported hearing children laughing behind her as she walked past the Hollis house, but when she turned, no one was there. One neighbor swore he heard a girl's voice call his name at 2 a.m. He had no daughters. The police dismissed these as hysteria. But the frequency of reports was undeniable. By late 1995, Peter Hollis's mental state collapsed. Co-workers described him as distracted, talking about shadows that followed him at the garage. He was once found asleep in a car he was repairing, muttering his missing children's names. Anne became increasingly isolated. Grocery clerks remembered her buying only milk, bread, and candles, nothing else. She told one cashier, "If the lights go out, at least he can't move in the dark." The surviving child, Michael, stopped speaking entirely for 6 weeks. Doctors called it selective mutism. On January 3, 1996, the Hollis case escalated again. Michael, then 4 years old, was found standing alone in the backyard at dawn, barefoot in the frost. Anne swore she had put him to bed in his room. When asked what he was doing outside, Michael whispered, "He wanted me to come play. But I didn't want to go where Lily is." The case files note, child exhibited extreme fear, refused to return to his bedroom. Slept in mother's arms for remainder of week. Anne begged the police to install surveillance cameras, but at that time, technology was expensive and unreliable. The department declined. By mid-1996, Peter began documenting the disturbances himself. Using a VHS camcorder, he set up night recordings in Michael's room. Most tapes showed nothing but static. But one, dated August 9, 1996, contained 17 minutes of audio that technicians later reviewed. Whispers repeating Michael's name, the sound of something heavy moving across the floor. And at 3:17 a.m., a child's voice, clear, frightened, saying, "Don't take me. Take Daniel back instead." The family swore Michael never said those words. And October 12, 1996, exactly 2 years to the day after the disappearances began, neighbors called police after hearing violent banging from the Hollis house. Officers entered to find Anne on the floor, sobbing, clutching Michael. Furniture had been overturned, every light bulb shattered. Peter was gone. His car remained in the driveway. His shoes were by the door. No footprints, no signs of a struggle. Just absence, Anne told investigators through tears. He opened the attic door, and it opened him back. The case file for that night ends with one chilling note from Detective Cross. The pattern continues. Another adult is now missing. The boy remains, for now. And with that, the Hollis story turned darker, because the last child was still alive, and the curse was closing in. By late 1996, the Hollis case had spiraled beyond a missing child investigation. One child, Daniel, 2 twins, Lily and Rose, and the father, Peter, had all disappeared. Only Anne and her youngest son, Michael, remained. The media branded the home the House of Vanishings. Neighbors stopped walking past after dark. Even police officers grew hesitant to respond to calls. You didn't want to go inside. You could feel it, even standing on the sidewalk, like something had already noticed you. Retired officer, testimony in 2003. Anne continued to keep Michael close. He rarely left her sight, but strange incidents persisted. Utility reports show the house experienced repeated blackouts, always at 3:17 a.m., despite no citywide outages. Neighbors swore they saw candlelight moving through the upstairs rooms. Even though Anne and Michael were sleeping downstairs, Anne's sister later claimed she received phone calls from Anne's landline. When she answered, she heard children giggling before the line went dead. On January 22, 1997, contractors were called in after Anne reported a smell like damp earth seeping from the walls. While inspecting the basement, one worker knocked against hollow plaster. Behind it was a concealed doorway. When officers arrived to document it, they found a narrow room no larger than a closet. Inside, small wooden toys scattered across the dirt floor, a child's shoe, decades out of style, drawings scratched into the wall, stick figures with no faces. Standing in doorways, Detective Cross ordered the room sealed, but photographs survived. They are some of the most disturbing images in the case file. It wasn't a storage space. It was a place for children, but not the living kind. Cross interview 2002. In March 1997, folklorist Dr. Margaret Keene was brought in as a consultant. She traced the Hollis family back to 1874, when the first recorded disappearance occurred. A girl named Abigail Hollis, age 9, who vanished on her birthday. Local legend from the period referenced something called the Watcher in the Walls. Families spoke of children being claimed before 10 if they were left unguarded at night. Keene concluded, what happened to the Hollises was not unique. It was inherited. Every generation lost a child, always before the age of 10. What makes Michael extraordinary is that he survived long enough to remember. By spring 1997, Michael began talking more. He is 5 years old now. In sessions with child psychologists, he described the man in the dark hallway who told him his birthday was coming. When asked what the man wanted, Michael said simply, "He wants me not to grow up." He also drew the same faceless figure Daniel once drew in school years earlier. April 14, 1997. Investigators placed an audio recorder in the Hollis basement overnight. At 3:17 a.m., the tape captured the sound of children laughing, a dragging noise across the dirt floor, a deep male voice whispering, "Not yet." Not yet, the recorder shut off abruptly. When officers retrieved it the next morning, they found fresh small handprints pressed into the concrete wall. No children had been inside. By mid-1997, the neighborhood was unraveling. Families moved away. The local elementary school reported half its enrollment dropping as parents pulled their children out. The house became a local legend. Teens dared each other to approach the porch at night. One group swore they saw a girl looking out from the upstairs window. She matched Lily's description. Police ignored these claims, but word spread. October 10, 1997. Anne organized a small birthday dinner for Michael, who was turning 6. She invited her sister and 2 neighbors. They later testified that the night was strangely quiet. When the cake was served, every candle blew out at once. No one had exhaled. The room fell silent until Michael whispered, "He doesn't want me to make a wish." Anne's sister left immediately. Anne's mental state deteriorated rapidly after that. She was seen wandering the backyard at night, digging holes with her bare hands. When asked what she was doing, she replied, "Looking for the rest of them." By November, she had stopped leaving the house entirely. Groceries piled at the door. Neighbors heard her shouting at night, though only Michael was inside with her. On December 2, 1997, Detective Cross returned to the Hollis home to conduct one final sweep. He brought 2 officers with him in the basement. They discovered that the concealed room's wall, previously sealed, had been broken open again. Inside was a message scratched into the plaster in a child's handwriting. Only one survives. The officers swore the writing was fresh. When they confronted Anne, she stared blankly and said, "I didn't write it." Michael did, but he was asleep when it appeared. That night, Cross submitted his last official note in the case. "Whatever is here is not human, and it will not stop until the boy is gone." By 1998, the Hollis family's story had become something between a curse and a ghost story in the suburbs. Only 2 remained inside the house, Anne and her youngest son, Michael. Peter was gone. The twins were gone. Daniel was gone. The house was quieter now, too quiet. It felt like the house was just waiting, like a mouth open in the dark, waiting for the last bite. Detective Alan Cross. Interview 2004, Michael's 6th year in the early months of 1998. Michael began speaking again, but what he said unsettled even hardened investigators. He often whispered to himself. When asked, he explained he was answering questions no one else could hear. During one therapy session, he told the psychologist, "They ask me if I'm ready. I tell them not yet." The psychologist wrote in her notes, "Child exhibits awareness of unseen interlocutors." Tone suggests genuine fear rather than invention. Anne's isolation. Anne had stopped answering her phone. Groceries were left at her porch. She stopped attending church, stopped seeing her sister, stopped everything except caring for Michael. Neighbors noticed curtains pinned shut even in daylight. At night, faint candlelight flickered through. One neighbor swore she saw a shadow of a man standing in the upstairs window, even though only Anne and Michael lived there. March 3, 1998. Anne reported the most violent incident yet. At exactly 3:17 a.m., every door in the house slammed shut at once. Michael screamed from his bedroom. When Anne reached him, she found the bed shaking violently, as if someone were trying to lift it from below. Michael's fingernails left gouges in her arm where he clung to her. When she tried to drag him into the hallway, the door refused to open, until suddenly, it swung wide with enough force to splinter the frame. Police photographed the damage. No intruder was found. Detective Cross, now obsessed, returned in April 1998. He convinced his superiors to allow surveillance equipment inside the house. 2 cameras were set up, one in the living room, one in Michael's bedroom. The living room footage showed only static. But the bedroom tape from April 18, 1998 recorded something else. At 3:17 a.m., Michael sat up in bed and whispered, "I said not yet." Then faintly, a man's voice replied, "You cannot stop the counting." The tape cut to black. Anne begged to leave the house, but she claimed something always drew them back. Twice she packed her car to flee. Twice the engine refused to start, even though mechanics later found nothing wrong. She told her sister, "It won't let us leave. He's marked, and I'm only here to watch it happen." June 7, 1998. The climax began. Anne called Cross at 2:50 a.m., screaming into the phone, "He's in the basement." He's calling them back. When officers arrived at 3:12 a.m., they found the basement door wide open. Anne was at the top of the stairs, clutching a kitchen knife. In the basement, Michael stood in the dirt-floored hidden room. He was staring at the wall, speaking softly. The transcript from the responding officer's body mic recorded, "Michael, I don't want to go." Unknown deep voice. "Only one survives. The rest are mine." At that moment, the officers reported the temperature dropped sharply. Their breath steamed in the dark. Then the walls began to shake. Dust poured from the ceiling. The officers fled upstairs with Anne and Michael, slamming the basement door behind them. After that night, Anne begged Cross to remove them from the house. For once, the department agreed. She and Michael were relocated to a relative's home across town. For several weeks, things were quiet. Michael slept through the night. The strange noises ceased. Anne began to believe they were safe, but on July 19, 1998, Michael woke up screaming. He pointed at the closet in the guest room and shouted. He found the door again. When Anne opened the closet, every shoe in the house had been lined up heel to toe, leading back into the dark. Anne's mental state deteriorated quickly. She became convinced the Watcher could travel wherever Michael went. That night she phoned Cross, whispering, "It doesn't matter where we hide. He doesn't need the house. He needs the boy." The next morning, she was found sitting in the driveway, clutching Michael, refusing to go back inside. On October 12, 1998, the anniversary of the first vanishings, Anne insisted they return to the Hollis house. She told her sister, "If it ends where it began." That night, neighbors reported seeing every light in the house blazing. Then at 3:17 a.m., all the windows went dark. When officers entered hours later, they found the house empty. No Anne, no Michael, but in the basement wall, freshly scratched into the plaster, were two words, "He stays." The last known note in the police file reads, "The child is presumed missing." The case remains open. Location of Anne Hollis unknown. And with that, the story reached its peak terror, the family confronting the Watcher head-on and losing. When Anne and Michael disappeared from the Hollis house on October 12, 1998, the case seemed closed. To the police, it was just another tragic abduction. To the community, it was the final act in a cursed history, but the truth didn't stay buried. People say the case ended in '98. That's not true. It only changed shape. Evidence kept surfacing, and Michael, he was never really gone. Detective Alan Cross, retired interview. 2005 Unexplained returns, December 1998, 2 months after Anne and Michael's disappearance. Neighbors reported lights flickering inside the Hollis house again, though the home was officially vacant. One neighbor swore she saw a small boy standing in the yard at night, barefoot, whispering into the dark. When she called out, he vanished. Police dismissed it as hysteria. In January 1999, Cross received an anonymous package at his office. Inside was a cardboard box containing 8 VHS tapes. Each tape was labeled with dates ranging from October 1997 to October 1998. Handwriting. Analysis later confirmed the labels were written by Anne Hollis. The contents shocked investigators. October 14, 1997. The camera sits in Michael's bedroom. At 3:17 a.m., the closet door slowly opens. A tall, shadowy figure appears in the crack, faceless, humanoid, too thin. Michael whispers, "Please not tonight." The figure fades. June 7, 1998 footage shows the infamous basement incident. The dirt floor ripples like water. Small hands press upward from beneath the soil. Anne screams off camera. October 12, 1998, the final tape. Every light in the house glows. Anne is on camera, holding Michael. She looks directly into the lens and says, "If anyone finds this, remember only one survives." He chose Michael. "Please don't look for me." The tape ends with static. Dr. Keene, the folklorist, studied the tapes. Her conclusion was stark. This is not possession. This is not a haunting. It is a ritual. For generations, something has fed on the Hollis children. The watcher in the walls is not a ghost. It is an inheritance. A bargain made long ago. One child is always left alive to carry the bloodline forward. Only then does the feeding end. Cross later told colleagues, the family wasn't cursed. They were chosen, and the choice was never theirs. On May 12, 1999, nearly 7 months after vanishing, Michael was found. A truck driver discovered him walking barefoot along a rural highway 20 miles from the Hollis house. He was thin, pale, but otherwise unharmed. When questioned, Michael said, "Mom stayed with him. She told me to run when the lights went out." Anne was never found. Psychologists interviewed Michael extensively. His words, though fragmented, revealed chilling details. He lives in the spaces where the house breathes. He took Daniel first because Daniel tried to hide me. He told Mommy that one always stays. She said she'd be the one, but he left. Most disturbingly, Michael described the watcher's voice. It sounds like Daddy, but it isn't Daddy. Detective Cross compiled all evidence, the disappearances, the hidden room, the tapes, Michael's return, into a 142-page report. He submitted it in December 1999. The report's conclusion: the Hollis family line has been systematically reduced by an entity or phenomenon beyond natural explanation. Attempts to intervene have failed. The only consistent pattern is survival of a single child. Michael Hollis is that survivor. His continued life appears to fulfill the bargain. The report was sealed. By the year 2000, Michael had been placed in foster care under a new name. He was 7 years old. Teachers described him as quiet, withdrawn, always watching corners of rooms. One teacher recalled him saying during art class, "I'm not allowed to have friends. They disappear if they get too close." Social workers reported lights flickering in every home where he stayed. In one foster home, every clock stopped at 3:17 a.m. one night. In October 2000, the family history resurfaced again. Anne's sister, Michael's aunt, was found dead in her home. Cause of death: heart failure. But carved into the wall beside her bed were 3 words in a child's handwriting: "Only one survives." Forensic experts confirmed the writing matched Michael's hand. When questioned, Michael calmly told investigators, "I didn't write it. He just uses me to hold the pencil." The case was quietly closed. By the end of 2000, Michael was the last Hollis alive. Every sibling, every cousin, every parent, gone. He alone carried the bloodline. And the pattern suggested he was safe. But everyone near him might not be. The last line in Cross's personal journal, written in January 2001, reads, "The boy is alive, but that is not a blessing." It is the watcher's promise, and promises like his never end. By 2001, the Hollis case was officially closed. Police reports were sealed, local newspapers had moved on, and the house itself stood abandoned at the end of the street. But the truth wasn't buried. It lived in one boy, Michael Hollis, the only child who ever survived. People forget cases. They move on, but survivors don't. Survivors carry it forever. Dr. Margaret Keene. Interview, 2010, placed in foster care under a new identity. Michael attended 3 different schools between 2001 and 2003. Teachers described him as polite but distant. He never joined sports, never attended sleepovers. One foster mother recalled, he would sit in the living room long after everyone went to bed, just staring at the hallway, like he was waiting for something to come through. Psychologists reported recurring nightmares. Michael often woke up screaming at exactly 3:17 a.m., though he never remembered the dream. Even outside the Hollis house, strange phenomena followed Michael. At age 10, a foster sibling went missing for 2 days. She reappeared in the woods miles away, barefoot and confused, with no memory of how she got there. At age 12, a family's pet dog was found dead in the basement, though the family swore the animal never went downstairs. Lights flickered in nearly every home he lived in. Caseworkers began to avoid him. One admitted in a later interview, it wasn't his fault. But you could feel it. The curse didn't end with the house. It was inside him now. In 2004, the Hollis house was finally demolished. Developers hoped to build new homes on the lot. But workers reported unsettling incidents during demolition, tools going missing, only to be found arranged in neat rows, children's laughter echoing through the empty shell of the house. One worker swore he saw a girl's face in the second floor window, though the floor had already been torn. Down, the project was abandoned. The land remains empty to this day. By the time Michael turned 18 in 2010, he requested all records of his case. He wanted to know what had really happened. Investigators, doctors, folklorists, he read everything. When interviewed in 2012, Michael said, "They all disappeared before 10. I didn't. That doesn't mean I survived. It means I was chosen." He lived under a new name, working small jobs, moving often. Neighbors described him as quiet, keeping curtains closed, rarely speaking. The final known interview with Michael took place in 2016, conducted by a true crime podcaster. The recording was never released publicly, but a transcript leaked. Podcaster: "Do you believe the Watcher still follows you?" Michael: "He doesn't follow. He's part of me." Podcaster: "What do you mean?" Michael: "I dream of walls. And every time I wake up, there's less room inside them." The interview ended abruptly when the audio captured a faint child's giggle in the background. Though Michael was alone in his apartment, the Hollis story became folklore. Urban legend websites cataloged it under The Vanishing. Children, teenagers dared each other to stand on the empty lot at 3:17 a.m. local. Parents warned kids to stay away from the Hollis ground. But for investigators who worked the case, it was no legend. Cross, before his death in 2018, left a handwritten note. "The boy grew, but the curse grows with him. If he has children, the cycle will begin again." As of 2023, Michael's whereabouts are unknown. Records indicate he left his last known address without notice. Neighbors said he had been living with a woman and that she was expecting a child. 3 months later, an anonymous report was filed with local police. The caller claimed to hear children's laughter echoing from a basement of a newly built home at exactly 3:17 a.m. when officers checked the address. They found nothing unusual. The family declined further questions. The report was quietly closed. The Hollis family is gone. Every child vanished before age 10, except one, and if the cycle is real, if the Watcher's bargain still holds, then the curse has not ended. It has only moved forward. The end.